So what happens after we die? I mean, for a lot of us, the answer we grew up with was pretty straightforward. It was a simple two-part choice, right?
You know the drill. It's either the pearly gates or the fiery pits. The good guys go up, the bad guys go down. And that's pretty much it. Case closed. But what if it's not that simple? What if it's way more complicated and honestly way more interesting than that?
Look, if you've ever felt that this black and white story just doesn't quite add up, you are definitely not alone. As our source material puts it, this whole fairy tale starts to feel a bit like, Santa Claus, once you really start to think about it. What about all the people in the middle? Well, that is exactly what we're going to explore.
All right, so let's just dive right in. I want you to forget that simple two-door choice. According to our source material, there are at least 7 major paths your soul can take after this life, plus a few other states you can get stuck in. Let's break them all down.
Okay, first up, we've got the simplest path of all, the dissolver. You can kind of think of this as the lights out theory. The idea here is that when your physical body dies, your consciousness, everything that makes you, just poof, it dissolves into nothing. No heaven, no hell, no second chances. It's just over.
The character Diesel in our source sums it up perfectly. It's totally straightforward, zero complications. And for some people, this idea is actually kind of freeing. No need to worry about any long-term consequences.
Next up is the revolver. Now, this is a concept I bet a lot of you have heard of, reincarnation. The core idea here is that your soul, what the source calls your cosmic consciousness, doesn't just end. Nope. Instead, it gets recycled, living life after life in a whole series of new bodies.
So it's not a one-and-done deal at all. It's this continuous cycle, a revolving wheel of existence. The idea is you keep coming back, again and again, to learn new lessons and to, grow.
Now this next path, it adds a really fascinating wrinkle to the whole cycle. The absolver suggests that between your reincarnations, your soul actually gets a break. It's like a spiritual vacation. You go to a temporary personal paradise that you basically create for yourself. It's a place to heal up and get ready before you head back to what the source calls soul school.
But what happens if you don't move on to that vacation spot? Well, that brings us to the resolver. I want you to think of this as your classic ghost story. This is a spirit that gets stuck right here, in our physical world because of unfinished business, some grudge, an addiction, or just a deep attachment they can't let go of. So, if reincarnation is like a revolving wheel, is there a way to get off the ride? Well, that brings us to the evolver. This path suggests the goal isn't just to repeat the cycle forever and ever, but to actually learn and grow with each life. You slowly move up a spiral, gaining wisdom, until finally you graduate. You break the cycle for good.
But, of course, if you can spiral up, you can also spiral down. And that's the devolver. Instead of evolving towards something better, a soul can get lost in corruption and chaos, becoming something more like a demon. It's literally the opposite of graduation.
And what's the ultimate end for a devolver? Well, that leads to our final path, the insolvent. Now, the idea here isn't eternal torture. It's actually that a soul can become so weighed down by negative karma, so dense and corrupt, that it literally can't exist anymore. It just disintegrates, slowly burning away until there's nothing left at all. Okay, I know some of these in-between states can sound a little similar, so it's really important we get the distinctions clear. Let's take a closer look at the different ways a soul can get stuck before moving on.
So what's the big difference between a resolver and the unresolved? It really comes down to two things, location and awareness. A resolver is a ghost, right? They're stuck here, in our physical world trying to solve that unfinished business. But the unresolved, they're lost in an astral fantasy land of their own making. They aren't stuck here. They're stuck in their own heads, totally unable to tell right from wrong.
This all sounds pretty theoretical, so let's make it real. The source brings up this great case study with the character Diesel, and it gets right to the heart of why a simple heaven or hell model just doesn't work for most of us.
This is the big question, isn't it? I mean, Diesel's not a supervillain. He's just a guy. He's not good enough for eternal paradise, but does he really deserve eternal torment? Where do you put someone who lives in that massive gray area in between?
So one character, Abby, she offers a much more compassionate solution. First, absolutely no hell. That would be totally unjust and would probably just make him bitter. Second, he needs to be shown why being virtuous is actually better, not just punished for his mistakes. And third, maybe
Maybe he could go somewhere for a while where he isn't constantly being tempted or confused, like a kind of spiritual rehab.
And this really gets to the core idea. Life is complicated. People are complicated. If the whole point is for a soul to learn and evolve, it needs way more than a simple pass/fail grade at the end. It needs tons of opportunities and all kinds of different experiences to actually grow. Okay, I know that was a lot of information. So, to make it all a little easier to remember, the source material suggests this really cool visual aid, a color code for the afterlife.
All right, here's your cheat sheet. Blue is for the dissolver. You just vanish into the blue. Yellow is the revolver's repeating cycle. Pink for the absolver's peaceful personal heaven. Clear for the see-through ghosts of the resolver. White for the pure light of the graduating evolver. Black for the darkness of the devolver. Gray for the confused, lost state of the unresolved. And finally, fiery red for the insolvent soul that just disintegrates. You see? It creates this whole palette for the afterlife, so much more than just black and white.
So, after all that, why does any of this matter right now? Well, because according to this whole perspective, your afterlife isn't something that just happens to you, it's something you are actively creating every single day.
The source proposes this absolutely fascinating idea that the spiritual world is the real reality, and our physical world is just a shadow of it, or a reflection, which means what you do here has very real, very tangible effects over there.
And really, this is the ultimate takeaway. Every thought you have, every word you say, and every single action you take is like sending out a type of energy that is literally building your spiritual home. Whether you're aware of it or not, you are the architect of your own afterlife.
So, the final question is a simple one, but it's also a really big one. Knowing that everything you think, say, and do contributes to it, what are you building?